Robert Brooks, New York Correctional Facility beating. The body cams they released, I guess it's 6 days ago now. Remember when I said they knew what was going on? Remember when I said this wasn't the first time? Remember when I said that this only came out because he died? Well, told you so.
Evening, I'm Christy Casciano. Jeff is off tonight. The documents included a sworn deposition from an investigator with the Department of Corrections regarding the death of 43-year-old Robert Brooks, an inmate at Marcy State Prison in Oneida County. News Channel 9's Alexandra Dern looking over the court documents for us this afternoon. And Alex, what new information has been released about the inmate's death?
Well, Christy, an investigator with the Department of Corrections viewed this body cam footage a number of corrections officers were seen, and which show Robert Brooks being punched and kicked on December 9th. And in those documents, we have learned from the investigator that the footage begins with Brooks seen sitting on the ground near the prison's entrance. Then several corrections officers lift Brooks up and carry him by his arms and legs to the prison infirmary. Next, Brooks is seen on his back on a medical examination table. Two officers hold Brooks in an upright position to be physically beaten by a handful of officers, injuring his lower and upper torso, buttocks, chest, and neck. And after that assault, Brooks was taken to the Wynn Hospital in Utica. He was pronounced dead at 4 a.m. on December 10th. And over the weekend, Governor Hochul called for the firing of the 14 people who were involved in the incident, and she also called for an internal review. And we will keep you updated as the state AG office is expected to release the body cam footage of this assault soon. And
So this said it was from 6 days ago, so I'm not sure because this was listed as after. Anyway, that being said, this will be one of 4 or 5 videos. This is from 6 days back leading up to what we've learned up to the last 2 hours. So yeah, there'll be more videos on this one.
He said the footage will be released once the family sees it, which they did earlier this week. Christy.
Alexandra, thank you. And to read the document, we have it posted for you at localaspire.com.
And to get to hear about more abuse that the prisoners had been complaining about, but nobody wanted to listen because, well, they're inmates, so of course they're going to complain. When this many people are complaining, people should be listening.
Tonight, News Channel 9 obtaining a report detailing more alleged abuse toward inmates from corrections officers at Marcy Correctional Facility.
Also, told you.
The report, written by the Correctional Association of New York, was conducted back in 2022. Over 2 days, representatives interviewed dozens of inmates, with the majority of them saying they had either personally experienced or seen other inmates being physically or racially abused. The report detailing some of the racialized abuse, saying, quote, incarcerated people cited the frequent use of racial slurs, unequal treatment of blacks and Hispanics, and threatening comments about people of different races spending time together. While most of the verbal abuse reported was directed at black people, incarcerated individuals also reported slurs and derogatory comments made toward Jewish and Asian people. That report was filed more than 2 years before the death of...
These people were so relaxed when they were beating him. This is not the first time. What I don't understand is either they didn't think he was going to die, so they didn't think the body cams that were running in standby mode were going to be brought into question because, well, if he don't die, nobody ever knows, because they have to know that these are recording video without audio, because out of all of them that were there to have body cams on, none of them were actually activated where they would pick up video and audio. They were running in standby mode, which only records video. So either they're too dumb to know how they work, or they didn't think he was going to die, so they didn't think this was going to get out.
Robert Brooks back on December 9th. The state attorney general releasing body camera video of that incident on Friday. Yesterday, News Channel 9 learning multiple officers involved in the deadly beating were named in other lawsuits alleging violence toward inmates.
Also, initially it came out that 2 of them here were called up on other incidents. Now we're up to 3. Wonder how many it's going to be in total. All these, there's a sergeant, there's one of the smart ones. He's a fat donut eater is what he is. And then this one just stands back, if you watch my other video, and just grins and laughs. And this one, he's probably the one that wound up killing him. But it's just ridiculous what they put that man through. They didn't care. This is a pattern, you can tell by the video that I did on it, that shows what they're doing. And it's just ridiculous.
As the investigation continues, make sure to check back to localsyr.com. You can also view the officer body camera footage. We have it posted there.
Gonna keep updating it. This will be 1 in 5 short videos that are information that is being released at this minute, and we're about to learn what I told you earlier. They knew what was going on. Hands-on. This is a hands-on facility. That usually means one thing. They're going hands-on. So here we go.
Hands-on prison. That's what inmates say the guards called Marcy Correctional Facility, according to a report from a watchdog group released just a few months before the violent death of Robert Brooks. The conclusions of that chilling study when the news starts right now.
Now, the news with Luke Radel.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Luke Radel. 1 in 5. That's how many prison inmates in Marcy say they haven't seen or been subjected to abuse by staff. No, I didn't misspeak just now. 20% of inmates say they have not seen or been subjected to staff abuse there, meaning 4 of every 5 inmates has seen or been subjected to staff abuse, whether it's physical, verbal, or sexual. That's according to a 62-page report by a watchdog group, Correctional Association of New York. I have the full thing right here, and going through its interviews with over 100 Marcy inmates is chilling, especially just a day after we saw this video from body cameras as inmate Robert Brooks was beaten by officers inside a medical exam room on the night of December 9th. He succumbed to his injuries in Wynn Hospital hours later.
Look at them beating him. These people, there's something desperately wrong with them. It's just ridiculous that it took a man dying for them to do anything about it. And now you got the governor and the attorney general and everybody else. Oh, we're so sorry, thoughts and prayers, and we're going to get to... No, they knew about this. They knew about this. 3 of the officers here have been involved in other incidents. There's paperwork on it. They're just... Government takes forever, and now a man's dead.
So let's take a look at this report and its findings. On page 3, quote, incarcerated people reported rampant abuse by staff, including physical assaults and observations on a retaliatory environment.
And of course the CO said, well, they're inmates, so of course they're going to complain. They don't want to be here. No. When 80% of a population is complaining about the same thing, you'd think people would listen. Again, it took a man dying, and inmates were told, if you go and talk to these people and tell them what's going on, just remember, they're not going to be here forever, but y'all are going to be here. And remember, the hands-on and the beatdowns that have been going around, they can get worse. So they threatened them not to talk to these people.
On page 22, the survey question answered by 64 Marcy inmates, quote, have you seen or personally been subjected to verbal, physical, or sexual abuse by staff at this prison? 51 inmates say yes, only 13 say no. Numbers that stark are hard to wrap your head around and almost hard to believe. Jennifer Schaaf, who's the executive director of the group that published this study months before this most recent beating of Robert Brooks, says potential skeptics of the data need to understand that what happened to Brooks is not an isolated incident.
Well, I think that now we have in living color the video evidence of the kind of brutality that people have described to us. We've interviewed thousands of people over the past couple of years alone, and an unacceptable...
The last couple of years they have been interviewing these people. I told you they knew. You knew they knew. You could see them, correctional officers, I use the term loosely, but beating that man, knowing they had body cameras on, even though apparently they didn't know how they worked. They didn't know in standby mode they would record video with no audio, or I'm guessing they knew, but they didn't think he was going to die, so they didn't think he'd get out. I'm almost betting, I don't know how much of this they say, but if you go back and look, somebody has to pull all the footage and look, you're going to see this more often than not.
Number of people who are incarcerated in New York State prisons have experienced or witnessed brutality that approaches the level that we're seeing in this video. And so I think that the skeptics might go back, read our report with fresh eyes now that they've seen this.
Sad. You get winded beating a man in handcuffs. These people, law enforcement, do not outside. These are considered law enforcement too. They're wannabe. But New York considers them law enforcement because they follow the same, I guess, training and standards. I don't know. Anyway, law enforcement, cops outside this building do not have a duty to protect you. The Supreme Court has already put that to bed. When you're in the confines of these walls, they have a duty to protect you. They beat that man to death.
Gruesome depiction of contempt for another human being's life.
In interviews with more than 100 inmates in Marcy conducted in October of 2022, the watchdog group found higher incidence of staff abuse at Marcy compared to other facilities, state prisons that they had visited recently. Inmates, quote, detailed experiencing or witnessing a range of abusive behaviors by staff, such as physical assaults in locations where cameras are absent, including between the gates, in vans, and in showers.
Yes, and don't think this is the only correctional facility this happens at. It is not. It's time to bring them all to light and let everybody see what is going on.
They also described staff engaging in verbal harassment and pepper spray. One individual described, quote, physical abuse is rampant. The CO told me that when I got here, this is a, quote, hands-on facility. We're going to put hands on you if we don't like what you're doing. Another stated, quote, vibes in this jail with staff are off. They brag and intimidate us about the number of people they've beat or sprayed. Here's more from...
Also, I'm wondering, when they say 20% said they hadn't witnessed or been a party to any of the beatings, if they were the ones that the correctional officers threatened that if you talk to these people, there'll be repercussions when they leave. Just wondering.
Shafe on this.
And so hands-on here doesn't mean very engaged in a positive way. It means hands-on, like we will put our hands on you, we will beat you up. And we've heard and seen in the media this characterization of a beat-up squad, this security squad that carries out allegedly many of the assaults at the facility.
And one more note on this report and its findings, quote, County monitors observed a pervasive culture of fear and retaliation at Marcy. On the second day of Kenny's visits, they went for 2 days in October of 2022, several incarcerated individuals confided in County monitors that staff had walked through the housing units the night prior, announcing threats of physical harm in retaliation for speaking with Kenny. Of course, we will continue to investigate this story on air and online. If you have thoughts or questions, please feel free to email us, news@WKT.
Also, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in this particular part, but it had came out that 2 of the correctional officers were involved in an incident a couple of years ago. Similar to this, but now we're up to 3. So I'm wondering how many more we're going to be up to by the time we get to the end of this. My guess would be all of them. This will be, I think this is video 4 or 5. Short little videos that they put out updating what is going on with the Robert Brooks case. And again, I told you so.
Now to demands for change continuing after the horrific death of a Rochester native while incarcerated.
After the death, calls for change. They knew it's up to 3 of these correctional officers so far have been caught or questioned doing something similar. Now that I told you, only because he died, are we even hearing anything about this?
3-year-old Robert Brooks was halfway through serving a 12-year sentence when body-worn camera footage shows corrections officers brutally beat him in a central New York corrections facility. He died a day later. 13 WHAM's Carly Miner spoke with the Correctional Association of New York to learn more. Carly.
Yeah, Karen, that association visits and examines state correctional facilities reporting on prison conditions. In its 2022 report, abuse was a common trend. Jennifer Scape.
Abuse was a common trend. Of course it was. Who was surprised about that? 0 people should be surprised about this.
Is the executive director of the Correctional Association of New York. The department's mission is to visit and examine state correctional facilities once every 5 years. Conditions at the Marcy Correctional Facility in Oneida County were reported on in 2022.
80% of the incarcerated people we spoke to reported having experienced or witnessed abuse of some kind, mistreatment, whether it was verbal, physical, or sexual.
Immediate action.
And probably the 20% said that they had not witnessed it and not been a party to it were probably the ones that the correctional officers threatened them that if they spoke to them when they left, there'd be repercussions. That would be my guess.
Were announced by Governor Kathy Hochul.
Governor Kathy Hochul is an idiot. There is no way she did not know what was going on inside the walls of these facilities in New York.
Following Brooks' death and the shocking beating he suffered, caught on body-worn camera.
My question is, had he not have died, who would they have killed that would bring all this to light?
You know, we are looking at this tragedy as an opportunity for the loss of Robert Brooks' life, not...
Again, I'm just saying, this guy stabbed his girlfriend in 2015 or 2016. I'm not saying he was a good guy. What I'm saying is, they have a duty to protect him, and they beat him to death. Nobody deserves that. That's my point.
To be in vain. And to see it as an opportunity to really work with the state to bring about accountability.
Now, we do want to warn viewers, this video is graphic. The Attorney General...
They blurred this out, but I made a video a day or 2 ago that shows the whole thing. YouTube has age restricted it, but the video's out there.
Says Brooks was transferred from Mohawk Correctional Facility to Marcy on December 9th. In the video, Brooks, who was handcuffed, was struck numerous times.
Addressing the mental health, the physical health, and the kind of occupational safety and health issues that face the corrections workforce has to be a part of changing the culture inside prisons.
You gotta change that. You got to... You got to burn that to the ground. I don't mean it literally. You got to burn that to the ground and start all over. The corruption starts from the top and works its way down. I'm just saying.
Next morning, Brooks was taken to the hospital, where he was pronounced dead.
This is an opportunity not just to break down those walls and make institutions more
break down those walls and make institutions more transparent. They have body cams on. Somebody surely is reviewing these body cams. I understand they're running in standby mode. They're recording video, they're just not recording audio. So either they didn't know that, or they knew it, didn't think he was going to die, so nobody was going to be the wiser. They didn't care. They were beating him and they were laughing. And then the medics, 2 of the medics that stood by the door, peeked in and had a look on their face like, oh, another beatdown, yeah, of course, and then laughed about it. They should be brought up on charges too.
Transparent, but also help humanize the people who are living and working inside the facilities in ways that are really sorely needed.
Now, the 14 individuals involved in that attack are still under investigation. 13 of them have been suspended without pay. The other resigned.
This is 5 of 5. This is the last of the updates that we have so far. I think this is going back about 2 hours ago. So, I'm not sure if this video has the actual beating blurred out or not. If it does, it's not going to show the whole thing anyway. I did a video a day or two ago on this whole thing that shows everything in its totality. So here we go.
A national spotlight is now on Marcy Correctional Facility after the beating of Robert Brooks. The I-Team is revealing multiple warning signs of brutality inside the prison facility and information that state corrections officials were likely aware something was wrong.
Likely aware? They're absolutely aware. Their whole job is to be aware. They knew what was going on.
The I-Team's Connor White reports now.
Body-worn camera footage provides an unflinching look at brutality inside Marcy Correctional, as multiple corrections officers savagely beat Robert Brooks the day before he died. The kind of brutality that inmates have been flagging for years.
For years, inmates have been complaining about this. Again, nobody want to listen to them because the COs will say, well, they're inmates. Of course they're going to complain. They don't like it here. Somebody should have listened a long time ago. I think the Brooks family needs to sue the entire state for everything they have. Sorry.
Very kinds of allegations that we hear routinely, and they simply do not typically get caught on camera.
Do not typically get caught on camera? Why do not typically get caught on camera? Because they don't have their cameras on? Because they're typically running in standby mode, and then you have to hit the little button and activate it, and it'll record video and audio, not just video. So, wonder why that is.
Jennifer Scaife is the executive director of the Correctional Association of New York, a nonprofit watchdog of the state prison system, which came to Marcy in a routine visit in 2022. In a 62-page report, the organization found that about 80% of inmates said they were either witnesses to or victims of verbal, physical, or sexual abuse. 67% say they were victims of racial abuse. One inmate told them that corrections officers would, quote, brag and intimidate us about the number of people they've beat or
And you're telling me they didn't really know what was going on? Okay.
sprayed.
I think certainly officials have been aware of allegations for quite some time.
The report calls for the Attorney General's office and the Inspector General to investigate claims of abuse. It's unclear if anyone looked at the prison before Brooks died.
If anyone looked at the prison before, why should they? They don't have time for that. They're too busy talking about how bad Trump is and this and that, and now a man's died and they're forced to look at it.
Claims of beating, similar to what Brooks suffered, are documented in 2 lawsuits from 2022. Lawsuits which name 3 of the same people. Before
I told you it was up to 2, now it's up to 3. Look at this one laughing. These are holding him down while he has his foot. He kicks that man in his crotch 4 or 5 times. And this one stands back and looks and laughs.
In this room. This week, Governor Kathy Hochul announced sweeping changes at the facility, installing a new superintendent and expediting a program to install more security and
more security and more body cams. But I thought earlier they said that they didn't know if they had anything else caught on body cams. They do. It's all caught on body cams. That man died and it's coming to light. The only reason you're hearing anything about it is because he died. Everyone involved in this should be in prison.
Body cameras.
I was really shocked that the governor did respond so fast.
Thomas Gant, an advocate with Center for Community Alternatives, says the governor's actions are encouraging, describing a perpetual pattern of corrections officers getting away with violence.
It's a good step. The governor did not go far enough.
The state attorney general's office is working on criminal charges for the 14 people involved in Brooks's death. In Syracuse, I'm Connor White.